Stefan, and in this video we'll explain of how to create the Excel spreadsheet. So we go to our Excel software, double click and open up an empty sheet. Now the most important part is right in the beginning. Our cockpit has two sides, left and right side, but they have different designs. So that's why we want to have another sheet. So we add sheet number 2 here, but we only can see one. So where we go is to Windows and say New Window. And a second window opens up. So we make sure that they're both approximately the same size. Now we have two windows. One is sheet number 1 and the other one is sheet number 2. Now we can start. So to start with, we start playing with our design. Here we have our columns, and if you go over the side, you see how the arrow changes. You can change the width. This is what we do. Now let's start with our cockpit design and make one frame. We go to font and we want to put a frame around it. So you go to the frame area, thick border. There you go. And then we call it accounts. I put that in bold. Now I want this be thicker. We go to bold, we go to 16, and there you go. Now we build a second box. That's going to be our income box. And we do the same thing. Frame. Since we used it already, we just click it. Same thing. It comes up. And we call this income. Again, bold and 16. Now I'll show you a trick. Over here we want to do the same thing. We move our columns in a way that we can design it later nicely for our purposes, where we have text and numbers. So since I don't want to do the formula all over again, or the bold, I just take this one here, say copy, Command C, and put it here. And then Command V, and we have the same thing. So instead of accounts, I just delete this and call it fixed expenses. And now we put a frame around this one. Thick border. You get the picture. So now we save it. You see here, save, and call it cockpit. Save. Same thing here, and we go on. Now we design the whole thing. To shorten this up a bit, I prepared this already, that we are now in this picture. Now we start to write down what we have. Let's say in our accounts here, we call it, we have our cash expenses here. Our bank, we just write the positions in there. Then we have here, for example, our our Visa balance. Now here the same line we put in for now 0, 0, 0. Here's our pending transactions. And move this up a little bit closer together, make it look pretty. And that would be a 0 also. Then we go for underline because we want to add up those numbers later. Again, we go to font, underline. There you go. Same thing with our income, employment, our restaurant, and so forth. Now, these numbers are going to be added up. So the numbers which contain formulas, they are supposed to be gray or solid color, so we don't touch them later on. The way we do this is just go to this field and go to this and say gray, for example. There you go. Now let's insert some numbers here, or format those. This area here, for example, we want this to be not text but numbers. So we go to Format, Cells, and then we go to Currency. Decimals, we don't want any. 0, symbol dollar is fine, and negative numbers we want in red and in brackets. And we click OK. So this is now the whole column is going to be like this. Wherever we put a number in is going to be formatted like a currency. Now here, we introduce our, these are just total numbers. Over here we have now our employment. Let's say 12 times per year we receive a paycheck. 2,700 per month. Again, this column here is going to be formatted cells to currency, 0 decimals, dollar sign, and negative here. Great. And now this is going to be gray because we want to multiply this times this later on, and this field is not to be touched, so we make it gray again. So we do the same thing, for example, down here. Food and household. Per month, we go for 0 for now. You see that this is already, since the whole column was programmed and formatted to currency, so it has the dollar sign already there. And here again, this is our result column. That's going to be, again, gray. And we do the same thing over here. I think you get the picture. Now, once this is done, it's going to look like this. Window, we want to open the other window, new window. There you go. Make sure both are approximately the same size. So here's sheet number 1. Here we click sheet number 2. And now we have our cockpit. Now we're going to look at formulas. We want the sum of all those numbers to be here. So we go to this field and let me show you. We go to this field and go to formulas. You see this here, formulas. Click on this. Then we go to auto sum. And the computer selects a certain section. We want not only this, we want this whole section here. Press enter and we have this. Now let's test it. If we put $2 in here and $4 in here, the total is 6. Another 3 here, 9. Perfect. So this goes back to 0. This goes back to 0. And this goes back to 0. Now here it gets a little bit more complicated because we first do our formulas this way and then we add them all up. So this formula here would be this field times this field. So let's do this. I delete this here for now. So we press this field equals, and then we just click on this times Shift 8, and then we click on this and return. So we double check our formula. This field here is E19 times G19. E19 times G19. I think this is very important that you really realize what's behind those numbers. In all the apps or bank supplied spreadsheets, you input all your information, but you don't know what happens to them. So here you are engineering, you're building your own cockpit and you see what happens behind the numbers. I think it's very, very important because this educates you to do critical thinking. You know how your spreadsheet works and you know how your numbers are coming together. And then again, we do this 3 times, and down here again it is the sum I16 to I24.